Okay, good evening, everybody. It is January 6th of 2019, and this will be part C of Revelations or Warnings and Revelations, part 26. I want to say first, I know I kind of mingle a lot of subjects together, and then maybe like I digress and or actually digress would be going back to the original topic, but I meander around stuff. So I was thinking about that, and the best I can tell you is like remember, I don't know if they still have it, but it was on like VH1 or MTV or something. They would have movies or even just like on the music videos, they had like pop-up video where like a little bubble would come up and give you information about what was going on there. So kind of thinking like, I'm just tossing up all these little bubbles with information, and whatever strikes a chord with somebody, they can grab onto and follow up on that. Trying to get as much information out there as I can. I know, like, a good presentation and a good clean video and everything would be like one subject, and then you'd have a list of just compartmentalized lectures going on one subject and staying on that, like, not bringing up other things. And that's good too, that's but I feel a lot of that sometimes, you just learn that one thing when maybe there's something else that kind of also goes along with that would be left out of that lesson, that's pertinent, even though it's like for a different subject. So anyway, here we go on with this. So in 26 I've been talking about the sorcery and stuff like that, and the book of Revelations clearly says what men would not give up, they wouldn't repent of when all the judgments are being passed. And one of them is sorcery and stuff, so it's real. And in gospel, or I'm not sure, it's not in, well, I guess everything, the epistles and Acts and all that are considered part of the gospel to Christians. So I'm not sure whether it's in the epistles or Acts or anything, but it talks about, it says, in all the Jewish books of witchcraft were burned there. I was going to look it up and see where exactly that was and stuff. So even back then, these teachings that they had from either they carried over from Zoroastrianism or what they learned in Babylon and stuff was present. And then you can see, again, it's present in the book of Revelations. So, and I'm sure by now, this day and age, the Jews or people of Jewish ancestry or the Jewish religion are not the only ones to practice this. And I know practice this stuff. And I know, not all Jews would even practice because they know it's not right. But they do have the Kabbalists and stuff like that. And you have all these Wiccan groups and stuff that practice stuff. Plus all the satanic stuff that's, just outright out there, saying what they do. Plus, I'm sure there's a lot of subliminal stuff that goes on. People trying to make profit. So it's clearly going to be at the forefront of the things that will take place that are listed in the book of Revelations. Another thing I wanted to say is even you see those faith healers and stuff like that, the Christian ones, and a lot of that is just flat out phony. So in a way, it's witchcraft by lying, because they're making people believe stuff that just isn't true. Making people get up out of wheelchairs and stuff. A lot of that's just, it's a carnival act. And but then there are some things they do, I'm sure, that involved witchcraft. And when they tell you they're talking in tongues and stuff, you have no idea what they're saying and who they're saying it to. So I would be very wary if you're still a Christian of that. The other thing I want to say is, no matter how much I tell, the Quran is the greatest book I have ever read in my life. And the Gospel of Barnabas is second, and the Book of Enoch would be third. Although I need to reread the Book of Enoch again because I read it too fast, and that's what I say. I might have passed over things. You know, I'm not a scholar. I don't claim divine insight. You know, where I'm getting revelations or anything like that. I'm just a guy that reads and a guy that, you know, watches lectures from people who are scholars and stuff, and trying to figure out as much as I can. Part of that is because, as coming out of Christianity, finding out how many times I was lied to and about things, you know, and a lot of it's my own fault because I should have dug deeper into things and stuff, but you get involved with work and life and family and stuff, and you just kind of go along with the flow of everything going around you. But you need to be wary. I need to try and make time to look for things. So no matter how much I tell how great the Quran is and the Gospel of Barnabas and the Book of Enoch, you won't realize it until you read it for yourself. You just, because there's, like, when I read the Gospel of Barnabas, you know, I know, like, you know, the birth story of Jesus, peace be upon him, differs, and it's the more traditional Christian one of the manger and stuff, when in the Quran it makes clear about the birth of Jesus. So I know that part of the Gospel of Barnabas, the book I got, which I ordered through Barnes & Noble. I know that part somebody's altered. And also in the Book of Enoch, there's a chapter towards the end where Enoch is denouncing people who've deceived a lot of the earth with the perception that they are God's people because of their wealth and their power. And then there's a verse where he says, and I know it's been changed because it says how their judgment will come when the Son of God appears. And so I know that was changed because we know Allah does not have a son. And Enoch would not say he had a son, being a prophet of God. So they changed that. It should probably either say servant or Messiah or prophet. That's positive for sure. It should not say son. So, you know, any of you that are Christian can go through your Bible and what's commonly known in the Old Testament and see where it says over and over again, God is one. God is not a man. He shall not meet you as a man. That his ways are higher than ours, and all these things he's making clear. He is not a man. And you know, there's one part where he's addressing that he had a spouse, or perhaps it's addressing when the Jews, was it Ezra? One of the prophets they called the Son of God, and they were punished for it. But you know, he reasons. He always, you know, anything you read, he says, let's reason. And so he's like, show me where this Queen of Heaven is, because for him to have a son, he would have to have a spouse, right? So he says, show me where this Queen of Heaven is. And I know the Catholics are like, oh, we refer to the Virgin Mary. The Blessed Virgin Mary, but you know, she's a servant and a human being, and she was well protected while she was on this earth, and she's in one of the highest heavens. But and there's verses in the Quran where Allah is going to ask her, did you ever tell these people to call you the mother of God? Did you ever ask them to pray to you? And she's going to say, no, my Lord, that's would be far from me. And then those people are going to be punished. So, but anyway, you can read for yourself and find the truth. You don't have to just take my word for it. And a lot of people are afraid to go and read. And that's the thing. A lot of people will say, oh, you believe that book, and blah, and they'll condemn the Quran or the Gospel of Barnabas and this and that, and they've never read it. They have never read it. You understand? And then there's people who have read it and who know it's the truth, and who have chosen evil, and who will still stare you away from it. And some of them are your most notable evangelical preachers. Whether it's for spite, or they chose evil, they don't want to give up their money, whatever, I don't know. So, anyway, and like I said, faith healers, Benny Hinn, stuff like that, I would not doubt that they are involved with some type of witchcraft. So I wanted to go over those things. As far as, it does, in the book of Revelations, does reference the sorcery, in what's considered the New Testament, part of the Bible. There are references to how the Jewish books of witchcraft were burned. There is references, to, sorcery and stuff like that in Egypt and in Babylon. And, so it's going to be a prevalent, thing. Now, the other thing about the Matrix, I talked about, evolution. All right. A lot of people believe it. A lot of people believe Big Bang. It comes from science. They teach all our children that, whether we want them to or not. And now they're starting to teach them some more crap about, you can't even be gender specific in the universities and stuff and all this. I mean, have you really stopped and thought about what's going on in our society? How this is insane. It's lunacy. And how are these people gaining traction? And how is it that, our Congress, a good portion of it, has aligned themselves with this stuff? And even the ones who say they oppose it, they're not putting up no real kind of fight. This lunacy of, you can't call a man or a woman, and people can just, they're going to self-identify as this or that, and that's what you gotta, and if you don't, then you're going to lose your job or be sued or whatever. It's time to wake up, folks, and put the brakes on this thing somehow, some way. I don't know. All I can say is pray, because this is lunacy. And you see how the media backs it on. I mean, Kevin Hart said something years ago about no father wants their son to be homosexual, and he's right. And they took the Oscar ceremonies away from him or something or whatever. And at first he stood his ground, but then they, must have done something to him, because then he's apologizing. And that goes on. I mean, there's been basketball players who said things, the next thing you know, they're apologizing. No one's standing their ground for some reason. Stand your ground. Have faith in your Creator. You can only win a fight if you take part in it. So, anyway, So a lot of the conspiracy theorists and stuff say, well, how can, they keep something like this secret? Well, only the top at the beginning would have to know something is askew. And then the rest they're just doing what they've been trained to do and what they been taught to believe. People who teach in the universities and stuff teach evolution, believe it because all the information that they've been given shows them that, and quite frankly, they've made their minds up, that that's what they want to believe. And there's even Christians who, believe what science and NASA and everybody tells them about the universe, because they've kind of, they call it intelligent design. Well, see, doesn't happen. They got Christian scientists who say, well, see, and all this proves intelligent design and stuff. But are you pointing to the right design? Because when you read Genesis and you read the book of Enoch and other descriptions of the earth and how it's created, it doesn't match what you're teaching. We're told the stars are great big gaseous clouds trillions of light years away or billions of light years away and stuff. But if you read in your Bible, and you're Christian, you read the book of Revelations, and it talks about how the stars will fall from heaven like figs. I think it's It's either Revelations or the Gospel. The stars will fall from heaven like when you shake a fig tree. Now, how can they be trillions of miles away and fall from heaven like figs, if that's going to happen? In the Gospel of Barnabas, Jesus, peace be upon him, says the earth floats on water. And in Genesis, when you read, it says he separated the waters, and the waters below from the waters above. When it talks about the flood, it says the fountains of the deep and the fountains above. Book of Enoch refers to, have you ever seen the Northern Lights? Tell me that don't look like light shining through water, shimmering like that. Go stand next to a swimming pool some night and tap the water and make it move and see how light moves through it, if it's got lights in the pool. The Book of Enoch also says the sun and the moon are the same size, only the sun is 7 times brighter. Next time there's an eclipse, look up at it. Well, not without glasses, but they line up perfectly, same size. Science will tell you, well, that's because the sun's so big and it's 93 million miles away. Well, that's a pretty good coincidence, Jack. Pretty good. Don't you think it would be just one of them, either the sun would be, out past the edges or the moon further out and blocking more of the sun. You wouldn't have that ring of fire. Same size. The sun is 7 times brighter. And if they're the same size, that means they're in relatively the same orbits. And Genesis describes that God made them both. Greater light and lesser light. Now, most people go with science because they have science put in their head, the greater light's the sun because it's super huge. No, it's just talking about the brightness. He didn't say it's bigger. He says a greater light. That doesn't mean it's bigger. Do you understand? So you have to pay attention to words and think about what's really being said. When I was a Christian, there was lots of times I would read something and I'd have a certain meaning of it, and then the preacher would twist it all around, and I'd be apologizing to my maker because I wasn't getting it the way they were. And a lot of stuff, I look back now and it's like, hey, I was right. And I'm not saying that, that was anything of my doing. Maybe it was, Allah showing me, hey, you can't go by these men, what they say. But so this matrix, other than the money and other things in religion and war, they deceive us in war. They deceive us about money and wealth and ideals and power and stuff, and evolution. And so one of the things, when Allah made Adam and told all the angels and the creatures, you know, to bow down to Adam, not bow down to worship him, but just as a reverence. You know, all the angels did except for Shaitan and the jinn that follow him. You know, Shaitan's a jinn, he's not an angel. You know, and then he swore he'd be mankind's enemy and mislead all of us. And Allah said, you know, he would throw him and Shaitan and his followers into hell. One of the things in the Quran, it says, all those who forget their Creator, you know, in this life, that he'll forget on that day. And so that's what Shaitan's goal is, to make you forget your Creator. And one of the biggest, best tricks he's done is about the creation story. If you can be deceived about the creation and what it is and how it was created, then you're going to forget everything else that comes after that. You're not going to be aware, spiritually aware of the world you live in. You know, you think you're on the third rock from the sun. You might believe in God, but you're on the third rock from the sun in a great big, huge universe. Stars are a trillion miles away. But that's not what your scriptures say. You see what I'm saying? They can get people to believe things, and that becomes true to them just because they hammer it and they hammer it and they hammer it all over again. And then you see it in movies and this and that and everything. And hey, yeah, all that rocket stuff in the space show, that's cool stuff. But really, it's like the astronauts going to the moon. Okay. I believe they only made low Earth orbit. And that's when they found out the Earth isn't a big round ball like they say it is. And they found out they couldn't get to the moon. You know, but they lied about it. And the whole thing with the space race was, it was to test rockets for ballistic missiles. You know, that was their main thing. The big thing about Sputnik that scared the hell out of them and everything was, oh, if they can launch that little thing going beepity, 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 they can put a warhead up there and drop it anywhere they want to. That's why the big race, space race was on. It was to, you know, get the rocket technology to make war. So, you know, there's no place in any of the scriptures that says God made a great big ball and it's hurling through space and spinning 1,000 miles an hour. It says the earth shall not be moved. And a lot of verses describe something totally different. So if the stars are going to fall from the heavens like figs, then they're not gaseous giants that are a trillion miles away. I'm going back to the only people who would know about, you know, the space stuff are the astronauts who actually been in space and the people they reported to when they came back. Everybody else below that would not be privy to anything. Period. So you're talking, you know, out of all the countries put together and stuff, the astronauts that have gone up, and you're talking maybe a few hundred people worldwide. So maybe over time, maybe 500, something like that. I know there hasn't been that much astronauts, but I'm sure they reported to a dozen or so people each, you know. But and any information they gathered was confiscated. And you know, there was always more than one of them on a mission and stuff most times. So it'd be like, you know, even if one of them wanted to talk, if the other one didn't, he'd just be made to look like a loon. And I'm sure they would have ways to get rid of him if they wanted to. But anyhow, so this Chinese thing, they say they got a probe up there on the moon now. I doubt it, me personally, because going back to, if the moon and the sun are the same size, they're in roughly the same orbit, which means if to plot a trip to the moon, they would have to know the distance and everything. And if it is 250,000 miles approximately, that means the sun's approximately 250,000 miles. So, and there's no telling, they could both be closer. But most of the stuff they show you, photographs, digital cartoon representations and stuff, I mean, that's all you got to go on is their word and that stuff. And they can alter pictures and films and all kinds of things like that. But anyway, if they'll lie to deceive nations into war and kill millions of people and stuff, I don't put anything past them. And I don't put anything past the elite who are out to have complete power as to how far they would lie and why. Maybe in their minds they're not doing it to lead you away from God, but what they are doing is, if they're altering what creation is through their stories and depictions and lies about it, then they're on the evil side. So because if you realize that you're not on a big rock hurling through space, if you realize the heavens above you are not just a great big void with stars trillions of miles away. I mean, because how could stars fall like figs if they're a trillion miles away? How? And the other thing is, there's plenty of the scriptures talking about the clouds of heaven, well, the saints. Okay, you look up at the night sky and you see those clouds. There's clouds of stars up there. They tell us those galaxies. They say the Milky Way galaxy is called the Milky Way galaxy because it's so like murky. It's so cloudy. And they'll tell you that's the dust and everything like that. Well, the clouds of heaven, the saints. What if, and there's a verse in the Quran that says, for every soul there's a star. Okay? So, those verses, if you look up, it's evident there's part of what you read right there in front of your eyes, but because of science, you've never made the connection. Clouds of heaven, look up, there they are. The stars of heaven. And in the creation story in Genesis, it says, he made the earth, and it had the waters and divided the waters, and made the firmament and put the sun and the moon and the stars. Well, stars and sun are two different things. You understand? So them telling us our sun is a big gaseous star isn't right to begin with. It's the sun, and telling us that stars are big gaseous balls, that isn't true either. I mean, if they were one and the same, it would, instead of saying and he made the sun, the greater light, it would say he made a star to give us light on earth. It says the sun and the moon. It doesn't say the star and the moon. You understand? So those verses and everything got me thinking, what if when you look up in the heavens and you see them clouds of stars, what if most of that, or most of those stars, are the angels of heaven? And I know people, because I thought about it too, they just stand still. Well, if they stand still for 1,000 years, 1,000 years ain't nothing for an angel. I mean, their experience with time is way different than ours. You understand? You know, and then it says, and the stars fall from heaven like figs. Now I got to thinking about that. Imran Hussein talks about a verse, a hadith, that says when Gog and Magog are making war and killing everybody on the planet, then they're going to take their arrows and shoot them into the heavens, and the arrows will come back with blood on them, and they'll boast about how they killed, and it's a test for them. It clearly says it's a test from Allah. They'll boast how they killed everyone on earth, and now how they killed everyone in heaven. So maybe when they fire their missiles, their arrows into the heavens, maybe a lot of those stars, that's when those stars fall. And it's a test from Allah to see what these evil people will do. So, and there's a thing, I don't know, I've seen some people have linked it to the time of the flood of Noah, is that it's where the water came in, they call it the dark rift up there. If you look, there's like a big, almost looks like if you're looking at I don't know, like a Grand Canyon, or you know, you're looking at a map with a great big, you know, river basin or something. Anyway, they call it the dark rift areas in the sky there, where everything's dark and not as many stars, or that there's like a black cloud blocking out the stars. I don't know if it's where the flood was, or you know, if maybe it's the jinn or the dark angels. I don't know, but I was thinking, how long has that thing been there and been recorded? I don't know, because a lot of these nuclear bomb tests they've done, they've exploded them about as high up as they can get one to go, and big ones, hydrogen bombs. Why the hell would you do that? Why? You know, not to mention all the cancers and stuff that are there now, and all that radiation that would be zooming around the earth. And those of you who don't believe in flat earth and wonder how you can go, you know, I'm not going to try and explain flat earth. You have to look up those websites on your own. But I'm telling you, if you look at the weather maps for flat earth and stuff, a lot of that stuff makes sense. And, you know, you say you've seen pictures from space. Well, maybe you haven't, because a lot of that was phony stuff. And if I was to take this camera right now, and I'll put my hand out, but tilt it down, suppose that's a plate, a flat plate. Well, look at it there. Oh, now there's an edge. Now, well, if my hand was round, now there's a round edge. It's all flat. But if you get the angle just right, take a plate and take your camera out, hold it straight above the plate, have it on a table, flat on a table, and now while you're looking at a flat disc, right, tilt it on edge a little bit until you see the edge of the plate there. Well, now it's a round ball, ain't it? So there's a lot they could have done with that stuff, and a lot they did do with it, and some of them have admitted it. They doctored photographs and everything. But this one's just about done here. But I wanted to bring that up about the matrix that they've created is to make you forget the actual creation. Because I promise you, go outside someday, look at the sun going across, or at night in the moon, and realize that those were created and they were put in their orbits by your maker, and that they're not what science tells you, and they are moving on the orbits that their Lord put them in. They're moving, the earth is not moving. Think of it that way, and see if it doesn't make your whole sense of reality and your relation to the creation and your creator different. Look up at night, a clear starry night, get out away from town and go out and look at those clouds of stars up there, and instead of them being trillions of light years or millions of light years away, think of the verses about the stars falling to heaven as figs, and you know, the clouds of heaven and the saints and things like that, and wonder if they're not angels, the armies of heaven, the host of heaven, just up there as a sign to you that the scriptures are true and that your creator is there. And this creation, I'm telling you, if you believe in the creation, is different than what they've been telling you, and you go out and you just look around, it'll change your whole mindset as to who you are, what this world is, and everything. Okay, I'll leave it there. Maybe I'll do another one if I have some more thoughts, but good luck to you all. Read for yourselves, and remember, there's no greater words you can say than Allah Akbar.